Hi guys, it's Vanessa. I'm here, not in HD. I know it's just one of those days where if I have to set up that camera, I'm gonna lose it. My knee hurts, I'm tired, it's hot as balls here in Chicago, so I'm just gonna do this review on here because you don't really need to see too much color, so it's an okay video to not do in HD. So what I'm reviewing today is the Nars, look, I say that and it's already messed up. The Nars, what is this called? The Pro-Prime Smudge Proof Eyeshadow Base. And as you can see, this is not a full size. It's a sample that I got from Sephora for being like a Beauty Insider. It was like one of the deluxe samples. The bigger one obviously comes in a longer tube, but the packaging essentially is the same. It's like a long white tube with a black cap, and it's got like that Nars rubberized feel. And when you take it out, it's a doe foot applicator. And the bigger one is a doe foot applicator as well. Because I know sometimes samples give you doe foots when it's really a brush, but it's a doe foot. And it is like this white, you know, like an eyeshadow primer, like any other primer. It goes on white, this one. And then it dries, as you can see, clear. Well, I didn't rub it all the way in, but you'll see why. I think it's in the $20-something range. I'm not sure. I have to look it up. I'll put the information in the bottom bar of like how many grams you get in a full size and how much it costs and stuff like that. You can get this from Nars.com, obviously, and Sephora, and those links will be in the bottom as well. So what I did, instead of just telling you like what I think about it, I think an important thing, since it's a little bit more of an expensive product to do, is to compare it with things that are out there in the market. Now, before I say this, I will say that the one item that I think you should splurge on, I know I love my splurge versus steals, and I love finding dupes and cheaper products, but the very one thing that I don't mind spending a lot of money on is eyeshadow base, because you can spend a lot of money on a good eyeshadow base, and then you can put every freaking cheap eyeshadow you want on top of it, and it's just going to help it stand out that much more and stay on your eye that much better. So eyeshadow primers, I mean, there are some good and expensive ones, but I'm just saying don't sweat it if you fall in love with the cheaper one. Don't worry about spending the money. Recessionista approved, spend the money, because it'll last you a while and it'll also be worth your while to do so. So anyways, even so, this one is still a little more expensive than most well-known eyeshadow primers. So I wanted to put it to the test. So what I did was, for a week I wore this primer on my right eye, and then I put a another primer, like another popular primer, on my other eye every day. So I tested it with the three, because I know there's a lot of different primers out there, but I tested it with the three most popular YouTube primers, I would say. So the first one I did was the Urban Decay Primer Potion, and this is also a sample size. I don't own the full size. Just a really quick story some of you may know is the full size, the number one qualm about it is the packaging. It's very hard to get all the product out. A lot of people saw into it and then they debottle their Urban Decay Primer Potion. I did that and I got pink eye from it because the plastic particles land inside your product, so be careful if you do that. Anyways, a side note, but it does bring me to a right away con about this product, is I feel that with the Nars primer you're going to run into the same problem. It's not like the genie shaped Urban Decay bottle, but it's still a cylinder like that you can't really get into with a doe foot applicator or this kind of wand. So I think that a lot of product will still be wasted in this. I think the best container for this is like an Urban Decay primer, or not Urban Decay, I'm sorry, Too Faced Shadow Insurance, where you could squeeze it out and get every last product. So that's a con right away for me with the Nars primer. But back to the comparison. So between these two, I wore this one on my left eye, this one on my right eye. And what I did was I applied all of the primers that I tested. I applied them at 8 in the morning, and I did not touch them at all throughout the day, which is really hard for me to do because I'm a touch-up queen, because my makeup never lasts, but whatever. So I left it at 8 in the morning until late at night, and late at night could be anywhere from 10 p.m. to 1 p.m. to even later than that. So that's what I did. So, and then I checked on it during lunch, and then I just wrote the notes like on my phone. And so I checked on it around noon every day, and then right before I went to bed, right before I took it off, I checked on it again. So in the battle between the Urban Decay Primer Potion and the Nars, when I wore the Nars, what I noticed at noon was that the Nars was like patchier. So like a big patch of it just kind of disappeared and went away. I have my notes that I'm pulling up. So yes, at lunchtime a small patch of Nars primer had faded and creased up. The Urban Decay primer potion was still intact by noon. It was like nothing happened and it was fine. By the end of the day, both were muddy, but Nars was much muddier than the Urban Decay. Like, the Urban Decay was like a little smudge, but the Nars was like, I had like 3 different colors on or something, and it just looked like brown. Like one color was on my eye. They all kind of blended together. So the eyeshadow was still on my eye except for that weird patch. But the colors were not at all defined and whatever. So for me in this instance, the Urban Decay wins, because why would I want a giant patch of my eyeshadow gone and muddy by the end of the night? So Urban Decay won that round for me. The next thing I tried was the Too Faced Shadow Insurance, but I don't have it to show you because my full-size tube of it ran out, and my sample was a single-use sample, and I used it that day. But I do have my notes. So from my notes, I applied it at 8 in the morning. Around lunchtime, both sides were a little bit patchy. The Nars was overall more true to color, and the color itself faded less, but the big patch was still missing. And the patch would happen like right in the inside of my eye, like right here. And then by the end of the days, the Nars and the Too Faced Shadow Insurance were both patchy. Nars was much muddier, but the Too Faced Shadow Insurance was more faded along the edges, if that makes sense. Like the Nars primer along the edges still looked sharp, but the shadow itself had all kind of just muddied up and became one shadow again. So in this case, I would say, believe it or not, I still think that the Nars won, because the Too Faced Shadow Insurance, this hurts me to say because that's my favorite eyeshadow primer, but I guess not, is that it patched up just like the Nars. It didn't stay long, like the color faded quicker than the Nars, so for me, the Nars would beat that. The next one I tried was Painterly Paint Pot from MAC, and I guess this is the most different in the sense that it comes in a jar like this. And with the Painterly Paint Pot, these are only intended to last about 8 hours, so I did notice a difference. I applied it around 8 o'clock at the same time. By lunchtime, the Nars primer was more, like the color was more intact, and the Paint Pot had faded, but again, a little bit had came off from the Nars one. And I also noted here not as big a patch as before, but it was still patchy. By the end of the day, the Painterly Paint Pot had completely faded, and the Nars was muddy but more intact than the Painterly. I love Painterly, but I have found a problem with that normally if I'm going to use Painterly, something I would do is put like Urban Decay and then Painterly, or like the Nars primer and then Painterly, because on its own, for me personally, it just does not last as long. So the Nars did beat that one out, but let me get to the last one and then I'll explain about the Nars. The last one I tried was the L'Oreal Decrease, and this is the drugstore version of it. This is the full size. It's from L'Oreal, like I said. You can get it at the drugstore. It's 0.20 ounces, and it comes with a doe foot applicator. It's got this genie-esque bottle. I wonder why. And it's just like a skin tone, just like all the other ones. So this is a really good primer for the drugstore, but let's see how it compared to the Nars. So the Decrease, we applied them both at 8 in the morning. By lunch, both had faded, but Nars had, again, the weird patch in the inner corner, but colors were much more vibrant than the Decrease. By the end of the day, both were muddy. Decrease was significantly less pigmented than the Nars side. So the colors had faded a lot more on the Decrease side, but the patch had increased, and then it ended up being a big chunk of eyeshadow missing. So in this case, believe it or not, I would say the Decrease one, because although the color faded, there was no patchiness. And I would rather have my color fade away altogether, or most of it, than a giant patch in the middle of the day be gone and then have like a vibrant outer corner. What is that going to do me, you know? So at the end of the day, in comparison with all the other ones, I wouldn't say that I necessarily think this is worth the money, believe it or not. And reasoning behind that is, number one, the packaging. It's more money than the Urban Decay Primer Potion, and you're going to run into the same situation as the Urban Decay Primer Potion, where you're going to have to either take out the stopper or you're going to have to cut the tube in half to get the full product out, because this doesn't squeeze, and you're, at the end of the day, like I said, you're just going to have that bottom part that you're not going to be able to scoop out product. So that's already a fail for me. This weird patchiness thing, every eye is different. Other people I know have used this. They love it. Like Temptalia loves it. And I know that that's a subjective thing, but for me personally, that patchiness is just, there's no way I'm going to spend $20-something and have my eyeshadow patching by the end of the day. So I don't like that at all. The texture of this, I don't know if it's because of sample, but I don't like it. I like my primers to be either stiffer than this or creamier. This is kind of like a runny Urban Decay Primer Potion. This one has stiffened up a bit just because it's older, so it dried out a little bit more. But I mean, it's not very, it's a little liquidier than the Urban Decay Primer Potion. I mean, in comparison to Urban Decay Primer Potion, I do like that better because Urban Decay is harder to blend. But this is almost too liquidy. It takes a little bit too long for it to dry on my eye, so I don't really like that either. Overall, I would say that if you could get a sample of this, I would try it first, only because everybody's eye is different, so I don't want you to not buy it based on my opinion, and I don't want you to hate me because of my opinion. I'm just telling you what happened to me. But basically, for the money that it is, I think it's not much better than an Urban Decay or a Too Faced Shadow Insurance or even a Decrease or a Primer Potion. So all of these, even the Urban Decay, which is like the best-selling eyeshadow primer, these are all cheaper than this. So at the end of the day, is it worth it just for the name Nars and a rubberized tip? No. I would just go with any of these choices, and I think you're going to get a similar bang for your buck. So that is my review. I hope it was helpful. I know it was all over the place. And I will talk to you guys later. Bye.